Bruchim Habaim, Chag Sameach. Hope everybody had a great Seder, Pesach Seder. We're just coming out of Pesach Seder, and now we're counting the Omer. And what is the connection with Haman and the Omer count? Also, a question, the number 70, the letter Ein, which equals 70. The sages say can be attached to Hashem and detached. And what is the connection with 70, Haman, and the counting of the Omer? So in the Gemara Megillah, it says, where can we find Haman hidden in the Torah? And the sages say we find Haman's name hidden in Bereshit chapter 3. So if you look here, it says in verse 11, and he said, so if we go into the Hebrew here, right here, Vayomer mi higid lecha ki o erom ata hamin ha'etz. Hamin. Have you eaten hamin of the eitz of the tree? So we see here the letters He, Mem, and Nun. Hamin, if you change the vowel points, the nikud, it can spell Haman. And so we see the letters of the name of Haman hinted in here. And what's this got to do with the Omer? So Adam bowed down to Haman, that tree. And Haman, in the Megillah, had everyone bow down to him. But he wanted Mordecai. And Mordecai doesn't bow. And we see this word, off. Off. What is off? Here is off, which is Aleph Fe. And what is this? So we see here in the second verse, or the first verse of chapter 2 in Bereshit. The serpent says, Did perhaps God say, you shall not eat of any tree of the garden? So, off, what does off mean here? So it says here, V'hanachash hayasa, arum micho haysa hasadeh asher asa, Hashem Elokim vayomer el ha'isha af ki amar Elokim, lo tochlu micho eitz hagan. So this is where the snake says, did perhaps God say, you shall not eat of the tree of the garden? Okay, so Vayomer el ha'isha af. What does af mean? Af can mean perhaps, like also. Did also God say? But the af can also mean anger. And we see that this is attached to the curse. What happened with the serpent after Chava ate from the tree? He was cursed. And we see this word off is actually attached to 4 people that were cursed with 70. 4 people were wiped out with off. First, the Nachash, and this is in Bereshit chapter 3, verse 1. And then if we go to Bereshit chapter 40, verse 16, we see off again with the baker. It says, the chamberlain of the bakers saw that he interpreted well. So he said to Yosef, I too, or it could be I also, in my dream, behold, 3 wicker baskets were on my head. And so if we go to the Hebrew here, it says, Afani, I too. And this is because the baker was basically responding admitting himself that he was in a way cursed. And in the uppermost baskets were all kinds of Pharaoh's food, baker's handiwork, and the birds were eating them from the basket above my head. And so Joseph explains the dream to the baker, and we see that his fate wasn't too good. And we also see the same word off in Bamidbar chapter 16. If we go to Bamidbar, which has to do with Korach. Korach in Numbers chapter 16, verse 14. It says, "Moreover, you did not bring us to a land flowing with milk and honey, nor gave us a heritage, a field and a vineyard." And so this is rebelliousness, but it says moreover, which means also, af lo el eretz. So we see that even the fate of Korach was no good. He was wiped out. And we see in the Megillah, in the book of Esther, if we go to the book of Esther, in chapter 5, verse 12 here, it says, Haman said, moreover also, Queen Esther invited no one but myself to accompany the king to the banquet that she prepared, and tomorrow too I am invited by her along with the king. So we see here off again. Off. This is also or anger, which actually has to do with nullifying the 70, the wrong side. And so why 70? Why is it attached to a curse? A 9, see, the letter ein equals 70, and a 9 is eyes, which is associated with the letter ein. And the eyes, we follow their whole, the eyes follow their whole life. We follow our eyes everywhere we go. But this is what happened when Chava followed her eyes. She became nothing, nullified. Nobody. When we follow our eyes, Chava, she looked at the tree and it was beautiful, and death came into the world. Ein equals 70. And the snake had Chava deceived with her eyes. And he will be punished with the Ein, 70. The snake will be punished. So Adam lived 930 years, short of 70 years. Adam was given 1,000, but that 70 years went to David HaMelech. And also in Tehillim 90, it actually says here, the days of among them are 70 years. So this is the normal lifespan that the Torah says we live out. And on Purim, we drink wine. The gematria of wine, yain, is 70. When the wine goes in, the secrets come out. Secrets in Hebrew is sod, which also equals the numerical value 70. So what's with Haman? Why 70? What has Purim got to do with all this? Haman followed his eye. He had everyone bow down to him except for Mordecai. And he wanted Mordecai to bow down, and Mordecai said no. And the 70, Mordecai was doing tikkun for the 70. The 70, the Nachash was cursed when the 70 was the day he was cursed. And what do we do? How many rest days do we have during the year? So we actually celebrate holy days. We're in Pesach now. There's 8 days of Sukkot, 7 days of Pesach. That's 15. 1 day of Shavuot, 16. 1 day of Rosh Hashanah, biblically, and 1 day of Yom Kippur. That equals 18. Plus we have 52 Shabbats during the year, which is a total of 70 days in a year. And these days that we rest is to undo the power of Haman. 70 days later, Haman was hung. He became chief, and then he was hung. And we see that Haman's name in the beginning of Megillah Esther was actually Memuchan. Memuchan. And the last letters, Kaf Nun. Kaf equals 20 and the Nun equals 50, which is 70. And Memuchan is a hint that he will only reign for 70 days. Memuchan. And so 70 days Hashem will take care of him. We see here, it says in Megillah chapter 3 verse 1, after these things King Ashkaveros promoted Haman, son of Hammedatha the Agagite, and advanced him. And it says, all king's servants at the king's gate would bow down and prostrate themselves before Haman, for this is what the king commanded concerning him. And it says concerning him, the Haman ki Cain, concerning him, Cain. Again, we have Kaf Nun, concerning him, which is 70. Meaning, it's almost like Hashem saying, in 70 days, I'm going to deal with him, Haman. And so, Esther made a second-day party when it came to meeting up with the king and Haman. Why 2 days? So Esther knew something about the 70. Esther knew. The first day of the party was 69 days. The second day was 70 days. Esther prepares a people to fast in Megillah chapter 4, verse 15. It says, then Esther said to reply to Mordecai, go assemble the Jews to be found in Shushan and fast for me. Do not eat or drink for 3 days, night or day. I with my maids will also fast. Okay, and so we see that Esther does a 3-day fast. The sages say she was actually fasting. So how long is 3 days? 72 hours. But the sages say that she actually fasted for 70 hours. 70 hours, because she knew the snake has power from the Ayin, the 70. Who was Mordecai? He was the head of the Sanhedrin. He was the 70th member. He was the head. 70 members in the Sanhedrin. So Esther and Mordecai knew about the secret to nullify the Nachash with 70. So how does this tie in with the Omer count? Well, if we come to Parsha Omer in Vayikra, chapter 23, we learn about the Omer count. And what's interesting is if you go to the beginning of the Parsha of Omer and all the way to chapter 21, verse 1, and you actually count 70 verses later, you come to chapter 23, verse 13. Verse 13, it says, the meal offering shall be 2/10 of an ephah of fine flour mixed with oil, a fire offering to Hashem, a satisfying aroma, and its libation shall be wine 1/4 hin. Okay, but in verse 15, it talks about the Omer. So what's going on? Is the Torah kind of got calculations wrong? They messed up and it really doesn't match up with the Omer? Well, there's actually a hint from this that Haman is connected to the Omer. So if we look at verse 13, the last word is 1/4 hin. And we go to the Hebrew here. and we see Hahin. The last letter is a Nun. Then in verse 14, it says, in all your dwelling places, the last word, it says, Mos Vosechem. And the last letter of this word in all your dwelling places is a mem. A mem. So you have Nun and mem. And then in verse 15, where it talks about the counting of the Omer, the last word is shall be complete. And it says Tihina. The last letter is a He, which is connected to the Omer count. And when you look at these letters, the ending letters, you have He, Mem, Nun, which spells Haman. And so, what are we doing when we're counting the Omer? What does Haman have to do with the Omer? When did Haman die? Haman died on the day we count the Omer. On the 3 days Esther fasted and Mordecai, that was the beginning of Pesach. Okay? And they did not keep the Seder. They understood this secret. They were fasting. The second day of Pesach, Haman got killed, and that was the day we start counting the Omer. One of the reasons we hide 10 pieces of chametz is because it was a negative 10 powers that the Haman students had, which goes against the Jewish nation all the time. And we undid that negative power. That night was the beginning of destruction of Haman. We also see another time of judgment in the Torah connected with the Omer count. When the 3 angels came to Abraham to bless him, to heal him, one angel came. One angel went. One angel healed Abraham, and 2 angels went to destroy the cities Sodom and Gomorrah. It was Pesach, and Lot also gave the angels matzah. So when they came to Abraham, they stayed Pesach night, and the next day they went to Lot. And the next day was the 16th of Nisan. And what did they do? They destroyed Sodom and Gomorrah. And why this time? Sodom and Gomorrah, so in Hebrew, is Sodom and Amorah. When we rearrange the letters of Amorah, it spells Omer. Sephirah HaOmer. It was destroyed on the night of the counting of the Omer. And when Yaakov, in Bereshit chapter 32, verse 12, we see here, it says, rescue me, please, from the hand of my brother, from the hand of Esau, for I fear him, lest he come and strike me down, mother and children. Well, if we look when it says rescue me now, the first 3 words, rescue me from his hand, Hatzileni na miyad. These initial letters of these 3 words spell Haman, He, Mem, Nun. So Yaakov was really, what did he do? When he met Esau, he bowed down 7 times, even though he shouldn't really have done this. That some of the sages say this was a little bit like Chilul Hashem, that he shouldn't have done this. He gave a little bit of power over to Esau, which really was like Haman. The Zadik bows down to the Rasha, and Yaakov does Teshuvah. Yaakov comes back to this world as Mordecai, and Esau comes back as Haman. And so Haman says, you gave me this power, now bow down to me. And Yaakov pleads, Hashem, please save me from my brother. And so we see that Mordecai is really doing tikkun for the bowing down of Asaph. And so when we do the Omer count, it is very serious. It's not so simple in our eyes. It's a big mitzvah. When we got to Israel because of the Omer count. Hashem told Abraham, I'm going to give you a land if you bring the Korban Omer. And so barley is also used when the woman is accused of adultery, cheating on her husband, the sota. And so what happens if she's innocent? It brings shalom bias. And so we have this connection of destroying, nullifying Haman as we count the Omer. We're destroying the Nachash, the Yetzer Hara. But what's interesting even as well is some know Jesus as Yeshua, and some call him as Yeshu, and some say it's a derogatory term, Yeshu, where they drop the ein. And you see, Yeshua, I believe, also was doing tikkun, going all the way back to Adam, and he was nullifying the 70, destroying the 70, and detaching himself. You know, when he died on the stake or the cross, whatever you want to call it, that Hashem turned away. It's like he closed his eyes. And this was all tikkun, going back to the garden, destroying the forces of impurity of the Nachash. And Yeshua rises again and reattaches the Ein. And that is the secret of the 70.